someone had just been stabbed all over because of drugs, probably because of a 10 bag, which is £10. But that's how serious and like involved these young kids are. And then literally before I know it, I just remember seeing like blood just everywhere. Oh my God, the mirror is huge. Wow. Thank you, fabulous. Yeah, thank you.
Happy, Jess?
Yeah, a bit nervous. Like, yeah.
Just see yourself.
Let's talk a little bit about you falling into the wrong crowd. Can you tell me about how that all happened? How did you meet these people?
I grew up in Swindon, Wiltshire. Me being quite small and stocky, I was quite a chubby young kid. I had sort of blocked fringe, glasses, and because of that, my appearance, I was bullied. And then social media come involved and the bullying just got worse and worse, and it was horrible, and then I was getting beaten up, really. But I knew how to defend myself, and I just remember having this girl in a headlock, and I wouldn't let go, and teachers had to drag me away, and then it escalated, and the police got involved, and because of that, me standing up for myself and looking like this big girl who can handle herself, that was when I was accepted by the wrong crowd. I remember being given my first cigarette by these people. I didn't even know how to light a cigarette, how to roll a cigarette, how to even inhale a cigarette at this point. I was 13 years old, and I was just sort of smoking to fit in with everyone. At that point, I'd never felt that feeling before. I'd felt like loved, I felt accepted, I felt like I could fit in with everybody, and I had friends. I felt like this popular girl that I always wanted to be. So being young and vulnerable, I didn't actually know what I was getting myself into. It all started by obviously just smoking, and then I was interested in weed, and I would smoke so much weed. Every day I would pick up a 10 bag or even more. So on the weekends or Friday, I remember gathering all my money up just to get weed, and that's how I'd spend my Friday night at the park smoking spliffs. It just escalated and escalated to harder drugs, to class A's. I started sniffing cocaine, I was doing pills, I was doing ecstasy, anything really that was quite cheap. And then it got to the point that people were coming to me to sort them out drugs. They knew that I'd done it, so they thought, oh, like, can you sort me this? Are you able to sort me a 10 bag? Or can you sort me a gram of cocaine? So I'd obviously ring up my dealer and pay them and get it from them, and then I'd sell it on. And at that point, I had myself involved in county lines, and essentially I was a drug dealer.
And what is county lines, Jess? Can you tell me a bit about what that is?
County lines is like a big line that just runs from one end of England to the other, continuously just selling drugs and grooming kids and getting kids into things that they just can't get themselves out. I remember my mate, I got a phone call from one of my friends at the time, and she was like, oh my God, like, come here, like, you need to come to us. Someone had just been stabbed all over because of drugs, probably because of a 10 bag, which is £10. But that's how serious and like involved these young kids are, for example, like myself. And I, at the time, like, being on the phone, I was like, oh my God, like, is he alive? Like, what? Like, what do you mean he's been stabbed? And then literally before I know it, I just remember seeing like blood just everywhere. At that point, I was scared, really.
And how old were the people in this gang?
I would say they must have been about 17, 18. Some even older, some were probably 19, 20.
Looking back now, you're kind of an adult and you've come through this and you're not friends with them anymore. Do you feel like they were sort of exploiting you a little bit?
Absolutely. I feel like the people selling me drugs, like, I was 12 years old picking up drugs. If they'd have known, well, they just shouldn't have been handing them to me. So I was definitely, now I look back, groomed. I don't always like to admit it because groomed, I don't feel that is a nice word, and it messed my head up so much that I just didn't want to be here. Like, as soon as I was on a come down from any of the drugs that I'd been on, I just turned sort of suicidal, and I just said, like, every day to my mum, like, I want to kill myself, like, I don't want to be going through this pain anymore, like, I just want it to stop, like, help me. And they were doing everything and more that they possibly could have at the time to help me. It got to a point that I actually went missing. I took myself out. I ran away from home because I just didn't want to be at home. And I remember going to my friend's house, and I had like where I'd been crying and just such in a bad state. I had such a headache. And I remember her giving me like tablets. I just literally passed out on the bed. Like, I was just gone, like passed out. And that was when my dad ran up the stairs. He literally thought he was gonna run up the stairs and pick me up by my dead body, like, because at that point it had got about that I'd overdosed. But I just remember waking up in hospital, and I was just like, I had drips in, everyone, like, sort of people were around me, mum and dad were there, and everyone was like, what have you taken? Like, what have you taken? Are you okay? Jess, can you hear me? And I was just so out of it because of the overdose.
God, that must have felt really awful when you woke up.
To be honest, at the time when I woke up, I was a bit like, I don't want to be here. Like, you know, there was a lot of things put in place. Mum and dad wouldn't let me out. I wouldn't leave the house. I had no phone. I wasn't allowed to see anyone. I couldn't even go to McDonald's to get like a drink or anything because there's just no trust. Like, they knew that after seeing everything in my system, being the overdose as well as like the drugs and the ecstasy and the cocaine and the weed, they just knew like they could not let me out, otherwise they were going to lose their daughter. I remember having social workers, I had CAMs, I had TAMs in place, and everybody just around me trying to help, but the place I was in, like, nobody could get through to me, nothing was able to help me. I think that's because I didn't want the help. I attempted to run away again, and my mum was like, no, like, I remember her like squeezing my hand, like, don't leave me, like, don't leave me. I even jumped over the back fence, and I think it was about an hour, maybe 2 hours after, I'd met some people and some of my friends at the time, and I remember just seeing my dad's car, and behind my dad was like 4 police officers. He had called up the guy that I was with and said, if you don't bring me my daughter, like, there's going to be problems. My dad, being the person he is, obviously decided to do that and take matters into his own hands. And the police basically cuffed me and put me in the back of their car. I remember sitting in the car, like, banging on the window, smashing the window, and just wanting to get out. Like, I was literally smashing my head on the window. I was going insane. And that was when they told me that they were going to section me. At this point, I didn't really know what it even was. I was so young. After going without no drugs for about 9 weeks and coming clean from all the drugs, so I was really ill, I was detoxing, and me and my mum, there were nights where I like was just crying my eyes out in her arms. Like, she stuck by my side, like, for the nights I didn't sleep, the times I wouldn't eat. Like, obviously at this point I had no phone, no contact, no social media, nobody knew who I was. The people that I was hanging around with at the time, like, previously, they had no idea. People thought I was dead. Like, me and my mum got a phone call from my dad saying, pack your bags, I'm flying you to Spain. You're going to Spain at this place that we've been previously on holiday, but it's in the middle of nowhere. And to be honest, that was where I recovered, and that was where I actually become a kid again. Like, I was jumping in the pool and having a laugh with my mum. I'd come clean, and at that point I think after hitting rock bottom and my mental health being so bad to the point that I didn't want to be here, was when I started to make a turn. A couple of weeks after being out in Spain, my dad and some family flew out to me. At this point, I had no relationship with my dad. I hated my dad. I did not want anything to do with him, purely because it was his decision to section me. And then I just remember seeing him for the first time in Spain, and we both just completely broke down crying. I remember him just putting his arms around me, and like, I was just such a different person. I think he sort of got the slight feeling that his little baby girl, as he calls me, was like sort of back. After being away for so long, they decided to bring me back home. And that was when I was brought into the boxing gym. My dad decided to take me down. And that was where I met Paul Rogers, my boxing coach. And literally from that day of walking into the gym, it changed my whole complete life. It was my purpose to wake up every morning. Like, it was just what I needed to just, help me and uplift me and change my life. When I used to take drugs, the reason why I'd done it was for the pain, to help cure the pain and numb me. And that is exactly what boxing done. So it was the complete opposite, and it was channeled and used in such a more positive way. So I definitely think if it wasn't for boxing, I wouldn't be where I am today. And obviously the skills that you learn from boxing, the discipline, the gratitude, the hard work, the pushing yourself until you can physically, mentally no longer do it, like, it massively helped me. Honestly, I look at Paul as like a fatherly figure. I love my dad, but Paul, where I had such talent in fighting, that was when Paul stepped up and taught me how to channel it positively. And he's got girls of himself that have never really been interested in boxing, so the bond between us is probably something that I'll have for life.
And if you could say anything to Paul now, what would you say to him?
I think for me, I would just like to thank Paul, like, from the bottom of my heart. Paul played like a huge part in saving my life. He showed me that, like, it's not always sunshine and rainbows, and you can get through it. There has been times where I've lost a boxing fight and I thought, oh, like, it's been hard to come back from, but he showed me that, no, you can come back from it. And like I said, boxing was what saved my life, so Paul definitely played a huge role in that. Off.
Can you see who that is, Jess? Paul's been here whilst you've been talking.
Oh my God, I'm shaking. It's okay. Oh.
You don't shut up, do you?
You're right.
Yeah. You've learnt that through talking to other people about it, there's a lot of people suffering the same way you do.
Absolutely.
In the same way we've all been through things.
I just hope after what I went through, it just helps with the other kids and just show that, like, I've been through it and it is possible to come out the other side and get through it as well.
Oh, Jess, your dad's here.
That was so weird. He just popped out.
It's a great story, it's nice.
I love Paul from the bottom of my heart. He's dad number 2. We've always said that, and I've got such a bond with Paul. I love him to bits. I really do.
No.
Always will do.
And it's nice to see people like you, Jess, give so much to something and take your mind off of all the negative stuff. Jess is proof, and she's now passing on that knowledge already. Sometimes if you notice someone's feeling a little bit low, and sometimes just by saying the right thing to them can give them
make their day,
lift.
isn't it? Don't get me wrong, I still struggle speaking to anyone, my boyfriend, mum, dad, Paul. But then when you do, it's like, whether it's your friend that you speak to or your mum, or if it's further people that you speak to, someone who can help you.
And life's always going to have its issues and pressures, but we've been through hell and back as a family, and to be fair, we've come back with an extended family.
Yeah, we did that. Well done.
Get your head on the pits there, go on.